Unfortunately, financial troubles like the housing crisis, economic downturns, and taxpayer bailouts can impact personal lives as well. My marital issues began with an unexpected phone call from the bank. "Hello, this is Andrew from your Mega Bank Credit Card Early Fraud Warning Department. How are you today?" Andrew's voice sounded rather impersonal, and I couldn't help but think it was a bit like a character from a cartoon. "I am doing well, Andrew. How are things on your end?" I replied, though I was actually standing in my living room, towel-wrapped and dripping water onto the carpet after a shower. "We have noticed several unusual charges on your credit card. Do you have the card with you?" I walked into the bedroom and retrieved my wallet. "Yes, Andrew, the credit card is here." "Great. Can you take a moment to go over some recent transactions with me?" "Sure, let's do it," I said. After verifying my identity, Andrew began listing off the charges. "The most recent one is for 2 tickets to the Yugoslavian Lawn Bowling Championship Club seating," he said. It was clear my credit card information had been compromised, and the thief was enjoying themselves. After some more discussion, my current credit card was canceled, and Andrew assured me a new card would arrive in the mail the next day. In the meantime, I needed to review my statement and report any charges that were mine or my wife's. My wife of 7 years, Amy, worked at the bakery where we both were employed. Yes, we had heard all the jokes about being rolling in dough and taking home a lot of bread. We managed to laugh along with them. I worked the night shift while attending school during the day. The bakery was a small regional business, and the owner, who was old school, preferred to promote from within. Last year, he called both Amy and me into his office after I had been turned down once more for a management position. "Bill, Amy," he said, "you are both smart and hardworking. I want employees like you on my team, people who understand the business from the ground up, not just those with fancy degrees telling me how to run things." He sat on the corner of his desk, facing us. "However, everyone knows I had to take funds from investors to expand. They want everyone in the front office to have a degree." Amy and I exchanged looks. We had graduated high school, and while I had opportunities for scholarships, we had married soon after graduation. Amy spoke first. "But we have both been working here since we were 16. Shouldn't that count for something?" The owner waved his hand dismissively. "Of course, it should. I could push the issue, but I want to train you to become decision makers, not just move you from the floor to a desk where those investors would never let you advance." He then walked back around his desk and sat down. "Here's my proposal. I'll transfer you to the overnight shift. Amy will run the lines, and Bill will supervise the loading dock. This will allow you to attend university classes during the day. It will be challenging, but you're both young and strong, and the university offers a year-round 3-year advanced business program." I cleared my throat before speaking up. "We appreciate your consideration, but what about the costs?" The owner waved his hand again. "As for the new company bylaws, I can't guarantee reimbursement. However, if you keep up your efforts and graduate, you'll gain far more than just a degree." So, we enrolled. I adapted well and did fine, but Amy struggled as schoolwork was never her strong suit. After a semester, she dropped out and returned to her former day shift position. Thus, today I found myself sitting in front of the computer at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, going over months of credit card transactions instead of getting some much-needed rest before my midnight shift. The combination of classes, the bakery, and schoolwork drained all my energy. Amy picked up most of the slack, handling day-to-day tasks from bill paying to housework. She really went out of her way to support me, putting dinner off until I woke from my night shift and packing my lunches with little notes inside. I thought we worked well as a team. I prepared breakfast for both of us as I was just getting home from the midnight shift when Amy was waking up. We often shared a quick moment together before she left for work and I headed off to class. Although we had discussed it in depth, I knew it was tough on her with the added expense of tuition. But more importantly to Amy was postponing the family we had planned to start and the purchase of a house. I considered myself fortunate to have a partner like Amy, who could see a better future for us with just a little present-day sacrifice. Turning my mind back to the credit card charges, it was easy to differentiate between our regular expenses, gasoline purchases, grocery store bills, hardware, and department store costs. The only charge I couldn't recall was a 5-month-old $149 fee from a vendor named AMDB. I thought, who is AMDB? So, I did what everyone does when they have a question. I performed a Google search. I was amused when I saw the results. AMDB turned out to be a website called ashleymadison.com, which is for people seeking affairs. The website's motto was "Life is short, have an affair." I chuckled, realizing our credit card thief was looking for some extramarital excitement. It was astonishing that someone had found a way to profit from infidelity besides divorce attorneys. That night, over dinner, I told Amy about the credit card being canceled and the new one being on its way. "Darn it," Amy exclaimed. "How did this happen? We're always so careful with our credit card." I shrugged. You can only do so much once you give out your card or card number to any merchant. Anyone along the chain can use it. We're not liable for the bogus charges, but in the end, we all suffer as prices go up to cover the loss. Amy spat. "I'll go over our bills to make sure we don't pay for anything that's not ours." I already did. I started to explain about the charge from AMDB and the possible cheating website. "Oh, I have a good one for you," Amy said. "Let me tell you about this one charge. It's from AMDB." AMDB? I was confused, so I asked, "Is that for curtains?" Amy interrupted, waving her napkin. "Yes, Bill, that charge is mine. It's a fabric store for some curtains I bought." Alarm bells started ringing as I looked at the curtains behind us. "Amy, when did you change the curtains? They look the same to me." Amy's face flushed as she glanced away. "I changed my mind before I put them up and returned them. We were supposed to get a refund. Let me contact AMDB tomorrow." Feeling sick, I dropped my fork onto my plate. "Bill, are you okay?" Amy asked, noticing my pale face. "Maybe you should call in sick tonight. I can stay home tomorrow and take care of you." I rose from the table and tried to hide my emotions. "No, Amy, you've done enough. I need to go." I was useless at work that night. Fortunately, my crew knew their job and needed minimal supervision. Normally, this was a good thing, but now the extra time just had me dwelling on the situation with Amy. Was she unfaithful? I wondered. Who signs up for an affair like choosing a toaster online? I threw away the lunch she had packed for me, including the note that read, "Love you, Bill. Can't wait until morning," with its hugs and kisses and a small hand-drawn heart. I used to look forward to these little letters, but now they seemed to mock me. For the first time, I didn't go home after work for breakfast or a moment with Amy. Instead, I headed straight to the university campus, killing time before my first class. Amy called my cell phone a half-dozen times, sending a few texts to check on me. I didn't return her calls but texted back that I was going to the library, then turned off my phone. Students at the university could be divided into 3 groups: working students, some older like myself returning to school, and younger students attending classes between minimum wage jobs. We were easy to spot by our sleep-deprived faces. Next were the majority of kids right out of high school, living in dorms, pledging sororities and fraternities, and getting involved in school activities. For many, this was their first time away from home, and some treated it like an extended vacation paid for by their parents. Lastly, there were the military veterans, about the same age as their sorority and frat counterparts but with a maturity level far beyond their years. The tall, pockmarked-faced guy who spoke with a slow southern drawl had a sharp mind honed by 2 tours of duty. Next to him was a petite, ponytailed blonde girl who looked like she belonged on a cheerleading squad. You would never have guessed she had a dozen confirmed kills. Nicknamed Deadeye Jane, she had lost an eye during a convoy ambush but still manned the twin .50 calibers. Jane used her skills to put the ambushers out of action. These veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan had earned their various GI and other government aid with sweat and blood. They did not tolerate either students or teachers wasting their time. Disciplined, they stuck together and were outspoken, as I found out during my first year when I met my lab partner for organic chemistry. Ilana was tall, almost 6 feet, and skinny with flaming red hair. I was sitting at my assigned lab station when she came up, dressed in a t-shirt with an Air Force logo. She extended her hand and introduced herself. "Hi, I'm Ilana, your lab partner. Everyone calls me Ilana." "Hi, Ilana," I said, shaking her hand. "I'm Bill. And, I'm Catholic. Does that count for extra points?" Ilana grinned. "Nice to meet you, Bill. I just wanted to make sure we won't have any issues. If so, we can get reassigned right now." "No problem on my end," I replied. "Why do they call you Ilana?" I asked. Ilana took a seat on the stool and organized her books at our station. She then tapped her left thigh, which made an odd clunking sound. "Got a prosthetic leg," Ilana said matter-of-factly. "So Ilana to the left, get it?" I was so shocked I didn't know what to say. Fortunately, Ilana saved me from the awkward silence. "Don't worry, Bill. I hate that politically correct stuff. Besides, it's not like I was a hero or anything." A mortar round hit the mess hall, took my leg, and messed up a perfectly good sandwich. Just then, the instructor came in, and we spent the rest of the class going over lab rules, tests, and safety. As always, there were a few disruptive students in the class. This time, it was an overgrown guy with a couple of his buddies. He was still wearing his high school leather jacket, as if anyone cared anymore. He and his friends kept making disruptive noises, earning them disapproving stares from the veterans. The leather jacket guy and his pals thought they were hilarious. As Ilana and I were walking out of the lab, she had her head down and accidentally bumped into the leather jacket guy in the hallway. He spun around. "Watch where you're going," he spat. Ilana coolly responded, "Sorry, it was an accident." "Hey, no need to get all worked up," the guy said. His face reddened as he continued, "Bet she's a bit uptight. Ever been mistaken for a man?" Ilana tilted her head before replying, "Nope, I've never been mistaken for a man. How about you? Anyone ever mistake you for a man?" The guy's face turned even redder as he stepped toward Ilana. "Think you're tough? I'm going to kick your," my heart raced. I wanted to step in, but my last fight had been with my brother over a slice of pizza when we were kids. I saw some movement behind the guy's friends and took a deep breath, stepping between him and Ilana. "There are 4 of you and 2 of us. It's not a fair match," I said, pausing for effect. "You need to get more guys." The guy turned even darker red as he gestured behind him without looking around. "You think you can take on all 4 of us?" I shrugged before answering, "We'll never know because 3 of you just left." The guy spun around to see his 3 friends had vanished. Facing him were more than a half-dozen veterans, standing shoulder to shoulder. Every hand seemed to hold a sharp or blunt instrument. A short, broad-shouldered guy with a muscular build and a USMC t-shirt stood in the center. One side of his face was covered in scars that ran into his crew cut. With a voice that sounded like it came straight from a drill sergeant, he addressed Ilana. "Former Airman Ilana, do you need assistance?" Ilana stepped up to the guy, who was now shifting his gaze between the veterans and Ilana. Looking straight into his eyes, Ilana said in a low voice, Do you want to leave and join your friends, or do we have a problem? The guy tried to respond, but no words came out. He simply shook his head. Ilana stepped back and addressed the veterans. Thank you for your offer, but no assistance is needed. This gentleman was just leaving. The guy saw his chance and bolted from the building. That incident was over a year ago. Ilana and I became friends and study partners, having most of the same classes. My wife, Amy, did not like Ilana, but that was back in better times. Today, I was sitting in the classroom when Ilana plopped down in the seat beside me. This was a required class to satisfy our humanities requirement, titled Psychology 103, Interpersonal Relationships, better known to most students as nuts and bolts. Ilana looked closely at me. You look terrible. Did something happen? Bad day? I jumped at her statement, and Ilana's eyes widened. Bill, I know you don't own a dog. Ilana was interrupted by the entrance of our professor. He clapped his hands to get everyone's attention and then started writing on the board. Today, my young scholars, we are going to discuss Chapter 8, Interpersonal Relationships in the Traditional Marriage. Some say the traditional marriage is dead or at least doomed, mainly due to shifting economic conditions and opportunities for men and women. You ladies today now have a chance to be as equal as men, but is that a good thing? Will the hookup culture, infidelity, or the need for marriage affect it? Many social scientists think so. He turned back to the board to write some names. These social scientists are not alone in their thinking. In 1992, author Dalla Hayek explored the changing dynamics of the American marriage with what at the time seemed like controversial ideas, stories of women whose lives were not ruined by having affairs. She chronicled women who were not sorry and who were not punished for having sex out of wedlock. 2 years later, in Tempted Women, The Passions, Perils, and Agonies of Female Infidelity, Carol Botwin called adultery the fastest-growing women's sport and attributed its increasing popularity in part to women having their own jobs, money, and power. She referred to these women as groundbreakers. I could not take it anymore. Grabbing my books, I fled the classroom. Ilana caught up with me after class, sitting on a bench outside the student union. Dropping her stack of books next to me, Ilana sat down. Okay, Bill, spill it. What's going on? While listening to my tale, Ilana opened up her laptop and typed furiously. After I finished, Ilana held up her hand to stop me from speaking. After a few minutes, she spun her laptop around to face me. She was logged onto the cheating website. Bill, we need to gather more information on this situation. It says here you can sign up for everything from online chats to anonymous meetings. So we're not sure if your wife has done anything yet. Great, I said dejectedly. My wife may only be involved in online activities. What a comfort. Don't change your major to marriage counselor just yet, Ilana snapped at me. If your situation gets any worse, you might as well run for Congress. Now listen up. You need to get her website username and password. Odds are it's on her smartphone. Do you know Amy's smartphone password? Amy's smartphone password is 11,234, the same as the day she got the phone. Perfect, Ilana said. Grab her phone tomorrow and put a piece of tape on the battery. She'll think the battery needs recharging. Grab the SIM card and bring it to me. What then? I asked. We'll make a plan once we find out more, Ilana replied, closing her laptop. Oh my God, I hate cheaters, she muttered. I saw so many people get hurt over there. Dear John letters and emails were as common as mail call. Relationships from a year to decades were shattered. I don't know who was worse, those who abandoned their partners from halfway around the world or the ones who cleaned them out when they got back. Ilana got up, pulling me to my feet. Now, buck up. I'll give you my psych notes. Come on, we've got 3 more classes today. Feeling more like a zombie than a student, I let Ilana guide me to our next class. When I came home from school, Amy's car was in the driveway. I walked in the door and heard her vacuuming upstairs. Seeing Amy's cell phone charging on the kitchen counter, I took the opportunity to unplug the charger, put a piece of tape over her battery contacts, and grab her SIM card. I had just finished when the vacuuming stopped, and I heard Amy call out, "Bill? Is that you? Are you okay?" "I'm in the kitchen, Amy," I answered. Amy came flying down the stairs. "Bill, I left work early. I was so worried when you didn't come home this morning and then you weren't answering my calls. I wanted to make sure you were okay." With that, Amy put the back of her hand to my forehead. "You feel a little warm. Are you running a fever?" "No, I'm fine, Amy. Just tired. I'm going to grab a shower and go to bed." Amy gave me a small smile and then asked, "Want some company in the shower?" "I missed you this morning. I'm not in the mood." "Maybe later," I said. "Right now, all I can think about is sleeping." "Okay, Bill, but you owe me," Amy replied, giving me a peck on the lips. I had no reply as I headed toward the shower. That night at work, Ilana showed up with a small guy with thick glasses. "Did you get her SIM card, Bill?" Ilana asked. "Better. I got her whole cell phone." Amy thought something was wrong with the charger, so she gave me the phone. "Cool," Ilana said, handing over the phone to the guy with glasses. "This is my friend from overseas. He does stuff with electronics and computers." The guy with glasses just grinned as he put Amy's SIM card into a reader and then attached a connector to Amy's cell phone. "Great. I'm a level 6 cryptologist with a master's degree in electronic engineering and run my own security software consulting business, and this is the respect I get." "He does stuff with electronics and computers," Ilana said. "Can you do this, or are you just bragging so I'll introduce you to that cute dancer at the university?" "Done," the guy with glasses said, pulling out the SIM card and disconnecting Amy's cell phone. He then handed them over to me along with the USB stick. "Everything you need to know is on here: passwords, call logs, texts. If it was on the phone, you've got it." "Thanks," I said, escorting both Ilana and the guy with glasses to the parking lot. I told my foreman I would be in the office doing paperwork and to disturb me only if it was critical. Steeling myself, I inserted the USB into my laptop and prepared for the worst. A few hours later, I was drained. Every time I thought it couldn't get worse, it did. With the phone info and username password, I was able to log into the website and view all of Amy's text history. Not only was Amy having cyber sex in chat rooms almost every night, but her texts revealed meetings with various men around town at least once a week. Amy's actions followed a set pattern: chat room conversations with overtones of role-playing and other behaviors she had always rebuffed me about. Her texts indicated she was engaging in intimate activities with strangers at various locations. It was astonishing. Amy often hesitated at just being affectionate with me, yet she was engaging in much more with others. I didn't know if it was any consolation, but it seemed she wasn't seeing the same person twice. Although many of her contacts kept flooding her text account, begging for more meetings. Like a train wreck, I couldn't tear my eyes away from the screen detailing Amy's actions. Only when one of my guys knocked on the door to let me know they were clocking out did I realize how late it was. Ilana was waiting for me outside the building. For the second time, I had skipped breakfast with Amy. Ilana saw it in my eyes before I even said a word, and she responded, "Well, you know the layout now, Bill. What are you going to do?" I sat down on a bench, feeling as if I had run a marathon. "Oh, Amy is gone. We are finished," I said, putting my hands in my pockets. I just feel so betrayed. I really thought she loved me. We've been together forever, planning to live happily ever after with the white picket fence and 2.5 kids. Ilana swatted me on the shoulder and said, "A relationship built on lies?" I thought that was the very definition of marriage. I gave her a sour look before replying, "Right now, Amy and I don't have much, so it's not like there's a lot of money to fight over. It just pisses me off that Amy is going to walk away from this without consequences while I'm left feeling like a fool." "Bill, listen. Amy is going to really regret her actions when she finds out. You know," I looked at Ilana. "Sure, Amy may be upset she got caught, but so what? In a couple of months or a year, Amy will get over it, latch onto some other person or one of her better connections. I'll still be the fool. I wish there was some way to make her pay for it, pay for it without going to jail." Ilana looked at me thoughtfully, then said, "Let's consider this. What if we could exploit her insecurities?" I was confused. "What do you mean?" Ilana was almost giddy. "Bill, you said you've been with Amy forever. What are her biggest fears? Getting old? Wrinkles?" I looked at Ilana and said, one word, fat. "Fat?" Ilana repeated. "Yeah, fat," I echoed. "Amy's mother is over 300 pounds. She's a nice lady, and everyone loves her. Amy's mom is one of the things I'm going to miss when we split." "That's nothing," Ilana countered. "Every girl over the age of 12 thinks she's too fat. But you don't understand. All of Amy's aunts and relatives are north of 250 pounds. Amy was a chubby girl growing up. She got teased throughout junior high and most of high school before she lost weight. Amy is deathly afraid of being fat, getting fat, or looking fat. It's like a phobia for her." Ilana had a gleam in her eye. "Let me think this over. Amy's not going to come out of this without some payback." 2 days later, I was in the bedroom, just out of the shower after returning home from my night shift, getting ready to head to class. "Darn it!" I heard Amy exclaim from the bathroom. A few seconds later, Amy walked out. "Bill, can you check the scale? It says I've gained 4 pounds. The thing must be broken." I knew the scale was working correctly as I had adjusted it to read 4 pounds heavier before I left for work the previous night. "Amy, the scale is fine," I lied, shouting to her from the bathroom. "In fact, I've even lost a pound." As Amy re-entered the bathroom, I quickly stepped off the scale, which returned to 0. "Bill, do I look fat in this?" she asked, buttoning up her slacks. "What do you mean, in this?" I replied, squeezing by her. "That's not what I meant, Bill, and you know it," Amy snapped at my back. I didn't respond, so she tried a different approach. Standing in the bathroom doorway, Amy undid her bra, knowing I liked her appearance. "You don't think I'm gaining weight, do you, Bill?" Amy asked. Normally, this would be my cue to compliment her and get some intimacy in return, but not this time. I just shrugged after glancing at her. "Amy, a few extra pounds just means there's more of you for me to hold." That wasn't the response she was looking for. Amy hooked her bra closed and stormed into the bathroom, slamming the door. I grinned inside as I put on my shoes. Let the games begin, I thought to myself. The rest of the first week went similarly. Amy fished for compliments while I skillfully deflected them with replies that hinted she was looking heavier. Switching out cartons, replacing her skim milk with heavy cream, and low-fat margarine with high-calorie butter was a hassle, but worth it as the extra calories made her feel bloated. Amy complained about feeling sluggish and lacking energy. I even started calling her Butterball, a nickname her late father had given her when she was a child. It brought back good memories but also reminded her of teasing classmates, which made her feel down. Meanwhile, Ilana was monitoring Amy's online activity and phone text messages via one of the 2 clone phones we had. After class midweek, Ilana gave me an update on Amy's activities. She's still in the chat rooms every night but not having as much fun as before. I gestured for Ilana to continue. Well, Bill, I've been deleting most of the requests she gets, only letting through the real oddballs and creeps. I also signed up as a male with different IP addresses and have been sending Amy messages about appreciating her size and seeking out larger ladies. I shook my head. You really play dirty, Ilana. No more dirty than what Amy's doing to you, Ilana huffed as we headed off to class. That Friday night at work, I got a call from Ilana. Bill, just thought you'd want to know your loving wife arranged a date tonight. That little sneak, I swore into the phone. I want to wring her neck. No worries, Bill. I took care of it. I sent one of the drag queens from the campus chapter of the society to meet Amy's date. I almost choked with laughter. You sent a drag queen in place of Amy? That's hilarious. Ilana was laughing too. Not just any drag queen, a 6-foot, overweight drag queen. I think he still had his 5 o'clock shadow when he showed up and claimed to be Amy. Tears were coming from my eyes as I tried to stifle my mirth. Jesus Christ, how did Amy's date react? The poor guy must have been in shock, Ilana replied. You'd think so, but that's where things backfired. Amy's date ended up going home with the drag queen. He just texted me, seems like they're both having a good time. Well, at least someone is happy, I said. My God, what kind of crazy characters are on that website? 304 of them, for one, Ilana replied. I winced. Touché. Speaking of the 304, what happened to Amy? Amy showed up fashionably late, but the 2 lovebirds had already left. She hung around for about an hour, texting furiously, which I blocked. I guess Amy finally figured she'd been stood up and left. Couldn't have happened to a better person, I said, then noticing one of my crew gesturing at me. I made my goodbyes and hung up. The following week, I was trying to get some sleep for the night shift when I woke up with a naked Amy on top of me. Glancing at the clock, I saw it was early evening. I had about 2 hours left before I needed to get up for my night shift. Amy and I hadn't been intimate in over a week, the longest ever for us. She must have been extremely eager as Amy knew how little sleep I got. Amy was always quiet and went out of her way to ensure nothing disturbed my rest. I'm sorry to wake you, Bill, Amy said between kisses as she lay on my chest. I've missed being together so much. With that, she reached down for me. Amy, I said, can we try another position? You're a bit heavy, making it hard to breathe. Amy froze, her face turning red with frustration. She rolled off me and jumped off the bed. Use your own hand, Amy said, stomping off. Go to hell. Apparently not, I thought as I rolled over and tried to get a few more hours of sleep. Later that week, Ilana showed up at my door with a petite, much older lady who was wearing a vest full of pins, sewing needles, scissors, and a tape measure. A pair of reading glasses was perched atop her sharp nose. Ilana bustled right past me with the woman into the house. Bill, this is my friend, Ilana began, pointing at the older lady. She's a senior seamstress for the university theater and has agreed to help us. Ilana turned toward the lady. Their clothes are in the bedroom closet, first room down the hall to your right. Once the older woman was out of earshot, Ilana said to me, her only son faced a tragic end after his wife left him with nothing in the divorce. It was a devastating experience for him. I was still confused. What does that have to do with us? Ilana just waved at me as she walked toward the bedroom. I was astonished when we entered my doorway. Amy's clothes were spread out on the bed with incredible speed. The older lady was snipping, cutting, and sewing with remarkable efficiency. She was working with different types of threads and materials in a blur. We watched for a while, then Ilana explained what was happening. On some of your wife's clothes, she's just snipping a few threads off the buttons so they'll pop off about halfway through the day. On other buttons, She's moving them to make the outfit seem tighter. For clothes with only zippers, she's tightening the darts to make the fit smaller. Will this work? I questioned as the seamstress worked at a rapid pace. Ilana just smiled at me. The next day, Amy woke me up as soon as she got home. She was in tears. "Bill, it was awful, just awful," Amy said, burying her head in my shoulder. I was at a floor meeting in the bakery. Everyone was there. It was my turn to speak, and when I stepped up with the new procedure, my buttons popped off my slacks and 3 from my blouse. Everyone started laughing. Some of the men made rude noises. The supervisor even joked that I should stop eating all the company's profits. It was awful. I patted Amy on the shoulder. "Now, Amy, I'm sure he was just making a joke. Why don't you just wear something else? You have a closet full of clothes." This only made Amy cry more. "I'm too fat for my clothes. Nothing fits anymore." "Then just pick out a new wardrobe," I suggested. This again was not the answer Amy wanted to hear. She pushed away from me and once more stomped out of the room. Was I being insensitive? Did I mention Amy was still going into the chat rooms or had set up more dates during this time? Fortunately, Amy's dates had all been thwarted by the appearance of Ilana's drag queen friends from the university group. Unlike the first time, all of Amy's other dates had fled when the drag queen showed up and introduced themselves as Amy. Some of the men left in a hurry. The highlight came around the end of the 3rd week on Thursday. Ilana introduced me to a man who was strikingly handsome, over 6 feet tall, with blonde hair, perfect white teeth, a square jaw, and a broad-shouldered physique that hinted at a set of 6-pack abs. He looked like he should be on posters for active wear. As we shook hands, Ilana made the introductions. He's from the university acting troupe. He's going to be Amy's date tonight. I pulled my hand away from his and stared at Ilana. "Don't worry, Bill," Ilana said, swatting my shoulder. "He's also VP of the university group." I sighed in relief. "Thank God," I said, looking up at this towering figure. The man gave me a smile and then, in a deep baritone voice, declared, "Sorry, I don't date married women." Ilana laughed. "Okay, break up this love feast." "Bill," I sent Amy his headshot to lure her in. "I've also been chatting online with Amy the past few days as him." Ilana jerked her thumb toward the man. "They're going to meet tonight. I'll send you the audio file." The audio file from that night was brutal. Amy kept trying to get him into the parking lot, men's restroom, or any secluded spot for intimacy, offering him everything she had. The man repeatedly told Amy he wasn't interested in larger women. I felt embarrassed for Amy as she protested, insisting she wasn't overweight. She even offered to perform intimate acts right there to show him what he'd be missing. It ended with the man telling Amy he wasn't attracted to chubby individuals but suggested if she lost some weight, she should give him a call. He advised her to start by cutting back on cream in her coffee and avoiding breadsticks. The audio file concluded with a sobbing Amy rushing away from the table. I listened to the audio twice before a problem at one of the loading bays took up the rest of my shift. It was Friday afternoon at the library before I had a chance to talk with Ilana. "How was Amy this morning?" Ilana asked as we sat in a study room. "She looked terrible," I replied. Amy's eyes were all red like she had been crying all night. She wanted us to go to her mother's this weekend, but we have that psychology field trip at the zoo tomorrow. It frustrates me because I think she's just looking for a new group of friends." Ilana pulled out her clone of Amy's phone. "I don't think so, Bill. I was reviewing Amy's calls and texts while waiting for you. They're all to her mom's number. Judging from the texts, her mom has a weekend full of baking and shopping planned, a real mother-daughter bonding time." I gave a derisive snort of disbelief. Ilana shook her head. "Amy is licking her wounds after last night. We all want to go home to our mothers when things get tough. I waved my hand. Okay, let's forget about her and get some ideas on this English comp paper. What's the topic we were given to dissect again? I asked. Ilana looked down at her smartphone and started writing on the whiteboard. It's define and dissect this phrase with examples and context. Act like a man of thinking, think like a man of action. That's easy, I snorted. It means don't do anything. Ilana turned toward me. Okay, Yoda, defend your statement. Listen, Ilana, thinking men don't act, so if you act like a man of thinking, you'll be frozen in place. On the other hand, if you think like a man of action, you'll be doing less thinking and more doing. So, this statement means don't do anything. Ilana replied, you could not be more wrong. How do you manage to walk around without bumping into walls with such a narrow view? The term think like a man of action requires a real-world plan, not some idealistic notion. The second part, act like a man of thinking, means not going in without a plan. There's an old saying, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I shook my head and disagreed, so we spent the better part of an hour arguing back and forth. Finally, Ilana said, I need to take a break. Let's go outside. You can't smoke on campus, I stated, following Ilana to a fire door exit at the back of the library. I survived the motor attack. I don't think a cigarette is going to kill me, Ilana replied. Come on, I know this fire door alarm doesn't work. The sensor's been broken since last semester. Exiting through the fire door, we were standing outside at the back of the library, sandwiched between a cardboard dumpster and noisy air handlers. Ilana dug into her large purse, found her pack of cigarettes, and lit up. She turned to me as I exaggeratedly waved the smoke away and coughed. Ilana made a face. Oh, get a life, Bill. This is one of the few places on campus without security cameras. I rolled my eyes before replying, you do know the whole university is a smoke-free zone. Ilana took a big drag and then answered, what are you going to do, Bill? Report me to campus authorities for smoking? I was about to retort when suddenly I was startled by the appearance of a person I hadn't seen before. He emerged from behind the dumpster holding a baseball bat over his shoulder. Swinging the bat in an easy arc, he approached us. Ilana dropped her cigarette and stepped on it, hitching her purse up onto her shoulder. Back off, or I'll make sure you regret it, she said, glaring at him. Otherwise, I'm going to make sure you leave here in a hurry. The stranger was unfazed and said, where are your friends now? He pointed the bat at us. I've been waiting for this chance to confront you. He then took a step forward, crouching into a batting stance, ready to swing. Recalling my playground days, I pointed behind him and yelled, look over there. I waved my hands over my head, shouting, over here. Over here. Help! Help! I saw hesitation in his eyes as he turned his head to see who I was pointing and waving at. Of course, there was no one there. Normally, back on the playground, this would have been my cue to run, the hesitation giving me a head start. However, running away wasn't an option this time, so I let out a primal scream, launching myself at the stranger and yelling, run, Ilana, run. Using the fighting experience I'd gained from watching wrestling as a kid, I latched onto the stranger's back, wrapping my hands around his head, covering his eyes with my forearms, and locking my legs around his chest. I was confident this hold would leave him unconscious quickly. What they don't tell you as a kid watching wrestling is that if your opponent is significantly stronger, he can easily throw you off with minimal effort. I found myself on the ground with the wind knocked out of me, watching as the stranger stood over me with the baseball bat raised like a warrior. My muscles refused to respond as I tried to roll away from the impending blow. Just before the air handler kicked on, obscuring all other sounds, I heard gunshots ring out. The stranger fell to the ground, clutching his thigh. I looked up to see Ilana in a combat stance with an automatic handgun. The pistol's slide was locked in the open position. She shook the firearm, grabbing the slide with her left hand. The air handler quieted down, and I heard the stranger moaning and Ilana shouting, "I can't believe this thing jammed." I rolled over onto my hands and knees before asking, "Ilana, what did you do?" The stranger looked up and yelled, "You shot me." Ilana stopped trying to clear the jammed pistol and walked toward us. "No, Sherlock, I didn't shoot you. What kind of person brings a baseball bat to a gunfight?" She shook the automatic in his face. "You're lucky this gun jammed. I was aiming for a more sensitive spot and should have had several more chances to hit my target." The stranger looked up and said, "How am I going to play now?" Ilana tapped his leg with her foot. "Jesus Christ, you want some cheese to go with that wine?" "I didn't even hit bone. It's just a scratch that's already stopped bleeding." The stranger took his hands away from his leg and saw that the blood stain on his pant leg was indeed not worsening. This gave me an idea. Shuffling over to him, I commanded, "Give me your wallet." He looked astonished. "You're going to rob me? First you shoot me, and now you're going to rob me?" "No," I said, "I'm going to help you. If we report this incident, the least of your worries will be losing your scholarship and getting expelled. You should be more concerned about assault charges and potential prison time. A nice young guy like you might find yourself in a difficult situation." The stranger pulled out his wallet and threw it to me. "Fine, just take it. Let's forget this happened." I handed the wallet to Ilana and took away her gun. "It's not that simple. You need to go to the hospital and get that wound checked to prevent infection. Hospitals are required to report gunshot wounds to the police." The stranger started whining. "Oh man, I'm so screwed." I tapped his face. "Not if you follow my instructions. You're going to wait 20 minutes, then call 911. When the police arrive, you'll say you were taking a shortcut back to the baseball field and got attacked by 3 people. Being the tough guy you are, you didn't hand over your money without a fight, and that's how you got shot." A visible sign of relief came over the stranger's face. Yeah, that'll work. Thanks, man. I won't forget this." I got up. "You should forget this, but I'm sure you'll be a big hero if you do. Now, wait 20 minutes, got it?" The stranger nodded, and I saw Ilana had a puzzled look on her face. I grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the parking lot. In the car, she was furious when I dismantled the pistol and tossed the pieces into various dumpsters and ponds. I also used a file from the car toolkit to scratch up the rifling in the barrel and mark the firing pin to eliminate any chance of identification from the round or shell casing. I threw the cash from the wallet out the window and tossed the wallet with its credit cards into an alley where homeless people were known to frequent. Ilana was livid and didn't say a word during the drive to my house. When we finally arrived, she demanded, "What the hell was that all about? Why are you doing favors for that guy who attacked us?" It was clear self-defense. He should be in trouble, not us. I gently pushed Ilana away. "Ilana, remember why you came to this state after your service and rehab?" She pointed a finger at me. "Don't change the subject." "I'm not changing the subject," I interrupted. "Those liberal politicians you like so much have some unusual views on self-defense. In this state, you can't just use force to defend yourself, you must make all attempts to exit the situation before using any kind of violence, including mace or other self-defense tools, and certainly not a gun. If a bad guy breaks into your home, you have to flee the premises." Ilana was incredulous. "That's crazy." I shrugged. "Did you have a permit or registration for the gun or a license to carry it?" Ilana shook her head. "I tried but got rejected twice. They didn't even read my application, they just said I had no valid reason." I nodded. "So, Ilana, you were carrying an unlicensed, illegal firearm. You never tried to flee the situation, and you shot someone without any warning. Even if the DA decided not to charge you, the school has a zero-tolerance policy about firearms on campus. You'd be automatically expelled, and you'd forfeit any government aid or student assistance. I can't believe this, Alana said, throwing up her hands. Are you sure about this? I just grinned. My late parents were very much the turn-the-other-cheek type, Gandhi-style pacifists who believed violence never solved anything. Plus, they were both community action attorneys who helped draft the state's laws on this issue. We never had much money because they were always involved in protests or working to change the world. So, what do we do now, Bill? I pushed Alana toward the bedroom. You need to take a shower to remove any residue, and I'll wash your clothes with ammonia to ensure they're clean. Alana didn't even flinch as she undressed. Alana was tall but had a slender build, and the only difference was the artificial leg. I had to admit the prosthesis was intriguing. Suddenly, I felt ashamed of my own complaints about Amy's troubles. Alana had endured far more trauma. Comparing our situations was like comparing a minor inconvenience to a major loss. Yet, it was Alana who was helping me. I was supposed to be a grown man, not someone who wallows in self-pity. She had been right about the phrase "think like a man of action, act like a man of thinking." I was thinking like a complainer and acting like a child, not a man. Bill, are you staring at my leg? Alana's words pulled me out of my thoughts. No, Alana, I was looking at your prosthesis, I said. She tapped the leg with her finger. Yeah, it's a pretty impressive piece of technology, microprocessor controlled, Euro-stabilized with pressurized sensor feedback, and a rechargeable long-life battery. I'm glad the government covered the cost. This thing is more expensive than a new car. They gave you a choice? I asked. Well, a new car does have good resale value, I added with a chuckle. Alana laughed as she removed her shirt while walking. Are you sure this isn't just a ploy to see me naked? Yes, Alana, I arranged for my wife to have affairs and convinced someone to attack us, knowing you'd defend yourself with a firearm, just so I could see you in a different light. I mean, I've seen similar equipment almost daily for the past decade. Alana laughed again as she reached the bathroom door, stopping to hand me her socks. Then she turned to me. Bill, that was pretty bold of you to confront that guy like that. Really, really risky, but still bold. What would you have done if I hadn't had the gun? I was carrying her clothes, so I said, actually, Alana, my first choice was running away. Alana gave me a curious look. You're not exactly the athletic type. Do you think you could have outrun him? As I headed to the laundry room, I laughed. I didn't need to outrun him, Alana. I just needed to outrun you. The next morning, I met Alana at the zoo's monkey house. After the adrenaline rush of the previous day, I was so exhausted that I called in sick to work for the first time ever. Alana and I had a field experiment in our foresight class, which involved observing how stimuli affect parental interactions in an outdoor environment. We were going to watch families with small children up close and see how the parents reacted. I thought it was a bit uncomfortable to act like a voyeur, but it was all for the sake of science. Alana, who was holding a small video camera, turned to me after an hour at the monkey house. Bill, this isn't working. Sure, there are lots of families with small kids around, but there are also tons of other people. It's too crowded and noisy in here. We're just another couple of faces. I agreed, so we wandered around the zoo until we found a better location, the African Painted Dogs exhibit, also known as Cape Hunting Dogs. The zoo had nearly 24 of these animals, which looked like average dogs but stood about 3 feet tall with multicolored spotted coats. There was always a group of young children gathered to watch the playful antics of the dogs from a bridge about 10 feet above the enclosure. The sight of these colorful dogs acting like playful puppies seemed to remind the children of their own pets, as they pointed and clapped with delight. we started our experiment, and after a while, we both noticed a pattern. When Alana did the observing, both mothers and fathers would smile back, proudly showing off their children. When I did the observing, mothers would hurriedly gather their children protectively and move them away, while fathers would puff up defensively, often challenging me with aggressive remarks. Fortunately, Alana was able to step in and calm down the more hostile parents. After a few hours, we took a break, eating snacks from the concession stand while watching the African painted dogs. "I'm done," I said, tossing the wrappers into the nearby trash container. Alana glanced at her watch. "We still have a few hours left. I think we need at least a dozen more observations to get a good sample for our presentations." "No, Alana, I'm done with this Amy situation," I said. "Remember the topic we have for that English comp paper?" "Sure," Alana replied. "Think like a man of action, act like a man of thought." "Yeah, well, you were right, and I've been doing the opposite. I've been wasting all my time focusing on actions against Amy. It's been a waste of both our time and effort." I looked at Alana. "I'm sorry I got you involved, but I realize now I need to move on and focus on what actions can help me achieve what I want." Alana tossed her juice box into the trash can before replying. "No worries, Bill. It's your call. It's a bit of a shame, though. I had some real plans for your wife, Amy." I shook my head. "Remind me never to cross you or any of your friends." "No thanks, but you can save your plans for world domination for next semester." Alana smiled. "Bill, what do you want? What are you going to do?" I swept my arms toward the nearby small crowd of parents with their children. "That's what I want, a normal family. A wife, kids, grandparents, the whole works." Alana followed my gesture to a young mother about our age with an older woman, probably the grandmother, trying to lift a wriggling toddler to get a better view of the African painted dogs. "Be careful," Alana muttered toward the mom, the grandparent, and the child. "That kid could fall and get hurt." Suddenly, in the blink of an eye, the toddler grabbed onto the railing ledge, pushed himself out of his mother's grasp, and pulled himself over the edge. I watched in horror as the child fell over 10 feet into the pit with the wild dogs. The mother began screaming, and both Alana and I, along with everyone else, ran to the edge of the railing to see the boy lying in the dirt below. The toddler sat up and started crying. The wild dogs, initially startled by the fall, were now regrouping into a pack. People began dialing on their cell phones while others ran off to find a zoo employee. "The dogs are going to attack that kid," a man next to me said, covering his daughter's eyes. Alana started to reach into her purse, then turned to me. "Bill, I need that gun." The dogs were snarling and advancing on the child, who was standing up with his back to them, reaching up toward the railing and wailing. I grabbed the metal trash can and threw it over the railing, aiming for the lead dog. The trash can missed the animals, crashing down between the crying toddler and the pack. This temporarily scattered the dogs, but they quickly regrouped and began their advance again. "Where are the zoo staff?" Alana spat, looking past the bridge. The lead dog was now only a few feet away from the boy. "Damn it," I thought, hoisting myself onto the railing edge. Alana grabbed my pant leg. "What are you doing?" I shook off her grip. "No time to think, Alana. Time for action." With that, I vaulted over the railing. Alana was swearing as I fell toward the sound of the child's screams and the snarling dogs. When I was little, my mom, in her mantra of avoiding violent movies, rented us the VHS tape of Mary Poppins. While my brother and I didn't enjoy the song and dance numbers, we were fascinated by how Mary Poppins could float from the sky using her umbrella. The next day, we took our dad's best umbrellas and climbed out the attic window of our 2-story home onto the roof. We both jumped at the same time. As you can guess, we didn't float gently to the ground. Dad's umbrellas turned inside out, and we fell like dropped anvils. My brother broke his leg, and I limped around with twisted ankles for weeks. Landing in the African painted dog exhibit felt exactly like that, falling onto the only non-grassy area in the entire place. I landed on my hands and knees, coming face to muzzle with the lead dog. We stared at each other for a fraction of a second before it lunged at my face. I whipped my head sideways, and it only caught a piece of my ear. I pushed back onto my knees, crossing my arms in front of my face for protection. I heard a sharp yelp from the lead dog and saw it back away. Suddenly, a sneaker struck the lead dog in the side, causing it to back off further. I looked up to see Alana hurling her purse at the dog closest to me. "Back off, you mutts," she screamed, shaking her fist. Turning to the crowd, she yelled, "Come on, give him some cover." Moments later, the air was filled with an aerial bombardment of shoes, juice boxes, and baby bottles. I even saw a couple of cell phones and a stroller crash down as the crowd followed Alana's lead. The dog pack scattered under the assault, giving me a chance to get to my feet and reach the crying toddler. The pain in my ankle slowed me down as I scooped up the child and headed for what looked like a door. The terrified child bit me twice as I tried to maneuver past the spotted canines. Unfortunately, the crowd ran out of things to throw, and the dogs began circling me like, well, a pack of wild animals. African painted dogs are known for taking down large prey on the savannah, and they easily evaded my kicks, taking bigger and bigger bites out of me. One even jumped up and latched onto my collar, ripping my shirt in half. I spun around, trying to protect the screaming toddler from getting bitten while avoiding letting the dogs latch onto me too deeply. I'd have given anything for a large stick at that moment. Then, like a miracle, a stick appeared right in front of me. Well, not exactly a stick, but close enough. It was Alana's prosthetic leg. She had unstrapped it and thrown it down to me as a weapon. I shifted the child to my left arm, who bit me again, and grabbed Alana's prosthetic leg from the ground. Swinging and stabbing with the leg, I managed to clear a path and make headway toward a door that I hoped would lead us out of the dog enclosure. The story continues in the next video. Link to part 2 in the description of this video. Thank you for watching and for your likes.